Yeah. Anyway, it's my favorite. I always say it's my favorite book or one of my favorite books. Anyway, okay.
Okay, ready
We
to
have Dave
go.
Clayton here, on the Skype from the UK. And Dave, before we get into your intro, because you have a rich background in the graphic arts industry, you're going to be at Adobe MAX speaking again, I guess you could say. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Actually, this year I'm not speaking.
Oh,
No, but back in 2016, through my long, actually quite short, illustrious career in graphic design, on this side of the fence of teaching, I was able to go to my first Adobe Max in 2016, and that's where I met Astute Graphics and joined Astute Graphics in 2017. And then it was always a dream to teach at Max, but I was still, which we'll talk about later, but relatively new to that side of it. And then in 2020, when the pandemic hit and Adobe Max went online, um, my book had come out. My how do I do that in InDesign book with Rocky Nook with through Scott Kelby,
oh yeah.
and I got invited to teach online at Adobe Max for Adobe InDesign, which went down really well. And I got invited back the second online year and did another a separate InDesign class, but the two were connected, and was kind of hoping that would turn into an invite to teach in person. Obviously, what happened was Adobe Max came back in person, but the thing was, 2019 we're looking at probably 16, 17,000 people at Adobe Max. When it returned in 2022, it was capped at 6,000. And when you've got less people, you have less classes and less instructors. But then what happened was I was invited by Russell Preston Brown, who anybody who knows Adobe will know Russell. And I was a teaching assistant. So from 2016, I've been a teaching assistant at Max, which means you go along and you help other instructors with their classes, with their labs. You can go around and you have your specialized subject. And then last year, Russell kindly invited me to teach at his pre-conference, and I did Adobe Illustrator Hidden Treasures, where I covered third-party products and
Like Astute.
Astute Graphics. Yeah, so quite a lot, about three quarters was Astute Graphics, because
Yeah, they
that's,
have some cool stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was great. I managed to kind of tick a box of teaching at Max. So I threw my hat in the ring again this year, but this year I think it's increased in capacity, but only something like 8 to 10,000. So I think they're gradually building it back up.
Right.
So what I'll just keep doing every year, throw my hat in. But what I am doing is I'm a teaching assistant this year. So I'll be helping Aaron Draplin in his pre-conference. And then I'll be working with Aaron Draplin for the rest of the week on his booth in the orange graphic design section of the creativity park, which is what I did last year. So the sad thing is not teaching, because I'd love to do a proper big full class
Sure.
one day.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is I don't have to prep. So
Yeah.
I can come to Max with no stress, no prep to have to
Oh
do.
yeah. That's
I
also
get to,
nice.
yeah, and because of the way I am, I love to help other people, so it's nice to be there. The Astute Graphics team will also be there, so it's always nice to see them again.
Right.
And all of our fellow colleagues in the industry. That this is
Yeah.
I call this the mothership. This is like our annual get together, our Woodstock of design.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Unfortunately, we won't be there, but some of our friends of Markzware will be there. Amy Beth Menendez will be there. I don't know if you know Amy Beth, but if you don't, you'll want to meet her up there. She's also going to that, some of those pre-training events, which is really
Yeah,
neat from Adobe. And I think Scott Citron was going to be there. In any event, like you said, it's just a ton of people there. So
yeah.
um,
I love it. I mean, like I said, I've been lucky enough to be able to come over from the UK since 2016 with those 2 years off.
right.
And it's a big expense. When I speak to a lot of people about Max, it is a big expense. And but I think you've got to invest in yourself. I think when you're when you're in this industry, you've got to kind of look at not just sort of staying in a room like I've got here, eight by eight with no windows. You have to get out there.
Yeah.
And I could crack it. I could talk for 3 hours about the connections I've made through going to events that have
Yeah.
got me where I am today, because because I put myself out there. So I try
Yeah.
to encourage people to invest in getting to an event, either be a, go and help, be a volunteer, try and get in as, if you're a student, go as a student, or try and get your company to send you. But there's so much to be said for being at events like Max and
Yeah.
Creative South and Creative Pro and
Oh
Photoshop
yeah,
World.
Creative Pro, another great one. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
100% right. The stuff you learn, even like besides the networking, the stuff you learn is like things that might take you years to figure out.
Oh,
You just don't know about it, and then you stumble onto it, and it's just incredible, you know.
yeah. It's those little light bulb moments, as they call
Yeah,
it, where you
yeah.
just sit there. And I got to teach at Creative Pro this year for the first time.
Oh, nice.
And I did InDesign. What did I do? InDesign script. No, I did InDesign styles, and I did third-party plugins for Adobe Illustrator. So
Oh, cool.
I kind of picked that as my niche because there's so much great content out there. People teaching Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign. And InDesign's my go-to. I come from desktop publishing background.
Right.
But obviously Astute Graphics, I spent 4 years there, and
Yeah.
got to see kind of behind the scenes and understand why plugins are created, and I absolutely loved it. I was
Yeah.
heartbroken when they let me go, but um I love the tools and I love teaching them, and I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
grateful
And
that I
good
got
folks. I met them at Creative Pro back in
yeah
18, and a really nice group, but and cool products. Very cool,
yeah.
very useful. But Dave, that was great. But maybe now tell us a bit more about your background, like where you come from and how you got to where you are today.
Yep, so I'm 57. So
I know the feeling.
yeah. So kind of been around the block. So half of my life was no computers, half of my life was with computers. And my background is I left school, I didn't go to university, didn't go to college or anything. I just went straight into work as an engineer. As a child, graphic design has always been in my bones. It was just, how does it manifest itself? And it took me half a lifetime for it to gradually find a home, and that was the dawn of computers. So I happened to work I was only an admin person, a parts admin person, a big print company in Hemel Hempstead in the UK. And that was the first time I got to see printing presses, and they were called Addressograph Multigraph, and I didn't realize how connected they were to the industry that I'm in now from a historical point of view till I watched, I think it was there's a film called Graphic Means, and I was watching it, and then they mentioned the company I worked for, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize how close I was to it back then. But it was the first time I got my hands on Quark Express and the first Mac. And once I saw that, I'd always loved making things from, little comics. I loved comics books. I loved sci-fi TV. And that all kind of was feeding brands and color and logos and type into my head. When computers came out and I realized I could make this myself, that kind of became my new focus. So I then moved into marketing, graphic design and marketing. I even worked in the quarry industry. So I could claim I was a rock star. But it was basically like Fred Flintstone. I worked in the quarry industry, but I became a marketing manager for this great company up in Leicestershire. And each time I got the opportunity to learn something new, I was learning on Paint Shop Pro before I got Photoshop. And then just one day, I came across the NAPP, Scott Kelby, National Association of Photoshop Professionals, round 2000 and I think 1999, 2000. I was first buying Photoshop User Magazine, Layers Magazine, and Scott had one called Mac Design, and I didn't even own a Mac, but I ended up buying one and realized, wow, this is what I want to do. So I
Yeah.
just became a graphic designer, and then obviously the connection with the NAPP, I joined them in 2009 and went to my first Photoshop World in 2010. And that was a real eye-opening moment for me, because I was suddenly at my first ever design conference, surrounded by people instructors I've been learning from, and fellow creatives who all had the same passion for design. And it cost me a lot of money to be there, but it's probably one of the best investments I've ever made, because it made me appreciate how how the landscape of learning was. It was sharing. I've always said in interviews that back in the day, remember when we were at school and we're doing a test and we put our arm over the paper and we
Yeah,
don't want anyone to copy, and it felt like the world of training was like that. Nobody wanted to share their secrets.
yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah,
and now it's completely the opposite. Everyone's competing to share their secrets on, YouTube is full
yeah.
of
Oh yeah,
content.
yeah,
And so it was kind of, oh wow, this is quite overwhelming, because some great people here teaching that I'm learning from. And I'm kind of happy that I'm an intro. I'd call myself an introvert, and I like to watch and learn. I
I
like
would
to
never guess, but anyway.
I like to be at the back of the room.
Yeah,
I've never done public speaking. And then through the connection with Kelby One and Scott Kelby, became a really good mentor, and I met Glyn Dewis. And after writing for the magazine, and Scott really finding out I was a graphic designer, he didn't really know what I did. He invited me to do my first ever speaking, my first ever class in public at the age of 50, which was also my first ever public speaking gig at the same age. I'd never stood up and, apart from a wedding, I'd never stood up and spoken in front of anybody about anything. Hated it. Even like when you leave a job and all the staff get round and you've got to do a little speech. Hated it.
wow. Well, you really were introvert. Okay. Or
Oh
really
yeah.
are. Yeah.
So Scott gave me this opportunity, and I grasped it with both hands and said yes, please. And I taught this class on InDesign. The projector broke down after 40 minutes for an hour session. So I adapted, and in my head it was like, what have I learned from all these instructors? Without realizing it, and it all it was a bit like Mr. Miyagi and the Karate Kid. All these like little things you picked up suddenly all came together.
Yeah.
And the last 20 minutes I got through, and people came up to me and they were going like, God, it's a good job you're experienced to get through that, because anyone else would have crumbled. And I was like, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And from that moment on, that kind of gave me the confidence I'd never had for that. And I got invited back the next 3 years to teach. And saying then I went to my first Adobe Max, and I got to meet other instructors. And it still makes me anxious. I massively over prepare. I've done 10 online video classes for Kelby One now. I've done, say, 3 Adobe Max, Creative Pro, Photoshop World in person, like I said, Creative South. I got to stand on stage with my good friend Diane, and we did a talk about community and how to evolve in the industry. And I can't say I go after speaking gigs, but I love being invited when I can. And I love sharing, and I love teaching. So part of being with Astute Graphics was great, because it combined my love of training, my love of graphic design, and my love of community, where I was able to go to events and connect and promote and teach. And I watch a lot of content, Skillshare, Domestika, Creative Pro, Photoshop World, Adobe Max. I love consuming other people's content
Right.
to learn how they teach,
Yeah.
because it's a world of education now. That's the weird thing. It's everything. A lot of what we consume, even social media, a lot of it is education.
It really is. And you said you had a son, and I have 2 sons, and they're so much smarter than we were at their age of 17, 20, whatever it might be. They have everything at the tip of their want an answer, they have it. So they're so
Yeah,
much more ahead of where we were. It's just going to be amazing in 20, 30, 40 years where society is, but
yeah. And they pick
right.
it up so quick. I've actually got 2 sons who are in their 20s and 2 daughters who are teenagers. And my youngest daughter, she's into photography and graphic design. She's just turned 14. And I gave her my iPad, and I've got Procreate on it. And I gave her my old laptop, my old MacBook, and opened up Illustrator. She taught herself. I walked in and like, well, how did you do that? And she went, oh, well, I saw this and I clicked on that. And I saw over here I could change the settings. So I did. and she's teaching me how to use Procreate, and she's 14, and it's like
Awesome.
they just absorb it.
Yeah.
It's intuitive to them,
It's
whereas
very intuitive. And if they don't know
yeah,
something, they just quick YouTube or a quick Google search, and they're right in like much faster than we. I'm probably like you. I go deeper in and really watch the whole video or the whole tutorial, and they just like do, and they just it's
yeah,
amazing.
and
So
the technical, the progression of technology, the curve is, when you think of us, when we like ground zero of first computer, um, we had like this slow curve kind of coming up where software was coming out, and new computers and memory and speed and software, and we had, but then all of a sudden it's like exponential curve of technology release, and now everybody's talking about AI, and it's
oh
like,
yeah, it,
technology doing it for us. It's
yeah,
crazy.
it really is. I mean, I remember, I think it was 97. You opened up Photoshop. Just opening up took forever, but just to like, do one effect or just to output your file would take like half hour. It was just
Yeah,
incredible, and you couldn't do anything. Your whole machine would be uh taken over by that process, and you just have to wait and
yeah. Even going
drink
on the
coffee.
internet to find something, like, Mom, get off the phone, I'm trying to get on the internet.
Yeah, and that whole that whole sound.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I
now
mean,
it's kind of all at our fingertips, so it's great. I think it's one of those things you have to embrace,
oh yeah, education. It's. But are
yeah.
you still a graphic? Are you still doing graphic design work
I'm
for?
still a graphic designer, so I work for, after Astute Graphics let me go, which was during COVID. So they
Yeah,
had some
tough time.
financial difficulties for everybody, and
Oh
it
yeah,
was just a sacrifice. But I had a great 4 years. I can't thank them enough for the opportunities I had, and I didn't want to waste it. That was the thing that made me sad within this industry, that I'd spent 4 years there, just over 4 years, and I was completely immersed. I mean, cut me in half and I was orange, and I lived Astute Graphics 24/7, and suddenly not being part of it was really hard to adjust,
yeah. I could
because I
imagine.
felt I don't want all this knowledge and experience to go to waste. So
Yeah,
I just decided, well, I'll go and do it on my own.
yeah,
Um, love the people, love the product. I use it every day, and I just decided to go and teach my own stuff and create my own content. So it was nice being in and around the industry. But then when I left, I didn't really know what to do. A few people had said, "Oh, go on your own," but it's scary being on your own. I've never
yeah,
worked for myself. I've always had a day job, and I kind of looked at the financials and thought, "No, I need a job." And luckily, two friends of mine I'd worked with at a design studio prior to Astute Graphics, there was a role going at this big cookware company in the UK in their brand department as a graphic designer. Bread and butter. Went along, joined, and now I work in packaging, packaging and design, and it's a great job, great people,
yeah.
and they allow me to do my training and teaching and traveling on the side. So I've been over to America 4 times. Well, Max will be my 4th time this year.
Wow,
So it's a nice balance. I've got a day job
great.
that brings
Yeah.
in a regular salary, and I've got a side gig that enables me to do what I love. So
And you're saying involved in the real workflows. So like packaging is a real solid print workflows with a lot of
yeah.
Illustrator, I assume, in
Yeah,
packaging. And
Illustrator in design, and I've learned so much. I mean, I've been there 2 years now, and I've learned so much about packaging, and retail marketing. So I just think, like, every job you do, every experience you get, learn from it, because since I've been there, I've done 2 articles now on design for packaging, which was
yeah,
something I'd never known before.
yeah.
So it all just adds. It's just like adding little layers of possibilities for you. So yeah, it's a great job. I love it at the moment, and it's like I say, it gives me a nice balance, and that's where your product, which we'll talk about, is really like come to roost,
Yeah.
because of what it does.
Yeah, we'll get that. So I'm just
Yeah.
now what like so like on the what kind of workflow would you describe your workflow at the packaging job, and what you do? I mean,
So
what kind of tools are you using to get the job done, so to speak?
yeah, so what we have is obviously in retail, we have 50, I think we're just about to open our 58th store in the UK. It's only UK based. We only sell from ourselves. We don't use Amazon or any we've got a website and the shops. And it's it's a company that's just floated on the stock market as well. So our workflow is we have a brand team, we have retail, so people pick the products, and then we have seasonal work to do. So Christmas is done. We're now working on summer. So
Wow.
what happens is they go and pick the products. So at the moment, we've just gone into electricals for the first. We've gone back into electricals, but on a wider scale. So we have to now plan for what all the products are, and then we have to get from the manufacturers all of the dies, the die cuts, and
Yeah.
the packaging requirements. Then we have brand guidelines, so we know like what safety logos have to go on, and the company logo. We have a in-house photography team, so they do all the photography when the product comes in. They get all that prepared, and then as a team, what we do is we're assigned different parts. So at the moment, one of my colleagues is doing all the electricals. I'm doing the cookware. So we have the die comes in, and we use Trello, and the job goes on Trello, and we're then supplied the assets we need.
Yeah.
And then we open up. We do everything in InDesign where possible. Some jobs were previously done in Illustrator, but if you're in the design industry, this is something you'll learn. The beautiful thing about InDesign is you you can package it up afterwards, and the assets are linked.
Yeah.
But if you use Adobe Illustrator, what happens is when you bring a file in, it increases the size of the document. So we've got Illustrator documents that are like 1.5 gig
Yeah.
because they've got multiple photographs that have been placed and they're embedded.
Yeah.
So we're trying to convert everything back to InDesign. So yeah, we set up the InDesign files, we bring in the dies, we have a checklist of all the safety information. We have a copywriter does all the copy, and then we obviously have to make all the packaging in line. So at the moment, I'm doing a product called Blue Steel, and it's a set of frying pans and woks and all different sizes. So I have to make all the packaging uniform. It's all got to look the same side by side. And it's funny, you kind of get into the habit of understanding like how close to the edges of the die folds and cuts you can have things,
Yeah.
how big certain icons have got to look. And that's kind of what we do. We go through a process where we prepare it all, and then we send it off for check-in. We do a proof check, and it comes back to us. Then we send off the final files, and they go printed. And then the great thing is I take my daughter into town. We and have a look around, and I'm like, oh, daddy did that one, daddy did that one. So we
Wow.
do
Yeah, that's
not
neat.
just the packaging, we do all the in-house graphics, so all the wall bays where the knives and pots and pans are,
Yeah.
all the graphics there are designed by our team, all the price tags, the leaflets, the catalog, we all do in-house, and then
Awesome.
obviously all the packaging. So it's a full kind of, there's 5 of us, and it's a full on process. It's like constantly, as soon as one
Yeah.
goes out, the next one comes
You
in.
have enough work to keep it going.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, how do you do pre-flighting? Do you do some kind of checking?
So we use the pre-flight in InDesign because a lot of the pre-flight work is done by the supplier. So they have in-house print teams.
Right.
So what we do is we check everything. Everything that leaves us has all the correct colors or CMYK. We outline all the type as well, just so that there's no problems with people
On.
with fonts
Right.
changing. So we do like a basic pre-flight check. Then we send it off to the printer. We package it up. We send them the whole file, and then they get to run it through their system and do a rip and make sure everything's okay.
And you're sending the native files to the printer?
Sometimes, most of the time, we send a PDF.
Right.
But on the rare occasion, we do send a full file just because there might be they might be a new supplier, a new printer, and there could be some
Complexities.
inconsistencies. Yeah, so
Right.
we have all bases covered, but
Right.
the important thing is obviously the good thing about the quality process check we've got is in olden times, like before I joined, you go down into the shop and you can see inconsistency in color
Yeah.
on the photographs on the packaging because it's down to the paper, the finish. We're a B Corp company, which means we're environmentally friendly. We don't use laminated card. It's all recyclable stuff. So you have to kind of change the way you design and think about color because you're not got the high gloss finish and
Right.
all the finishes you used to have. We're trying to be more sustainable. So
Right.
it does change the way you design and you think about color and how things are going to look.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, yeah, I mean, you might want to check out Flight Check. I'll get you a link later on. It's
yeah,
cool third day because what's cool about Flight Check, it's like, when you're like a tennis player or whatever, golf player, you don't want to be interrupted in the middle of your designing process. And the Flight Check is apart from InDesign; it's standalone or
okay,
Illustrator, and it checks Illustrator, Photoshop, PDFs, tips, whatever. You just drop it on Flight Check, and it gives you a report on what's inside your file with a
okay.
preview, and it shows you in the preview where the problems are, and then you can click on one. It will take you into InDesign to the exact page, to the exact problem. So then you can address it or look further at the InDesign quality checks. But
That's
anyway, it's very
excellent.
interesting because it's outside of the
Yeah.
applications. Yeah,
No, we definitely have to look at that because
yeah,
I'm trying to get the team set up on Astute Graphics at the moment. But like any company,
yeah.
you have to
I
put a
know
proposal and
it's a process.
everything. But yeah, but the thing is, once you show something, this is the thing I love about software, particularly non-Adobe software, is whilst it's the core product, there are so many great tools around it that help your workflow, and I'm all about a better workflow and learning quicker and getting the job done, not cutting corners. Because I think cutting
Right,
corners can cause problems, but actually having a workflow and a process that makes sense.
right. Makes better quality and takes less time
Absolutely.
when
Yeah.
possible, and then you're just moving forward, not moving backwards. So
Yeah.
on that note, Scott, so now you're using OmniMarkz. How was the first, let's say, like your first, getting set up with it? How did that all go for you?
It was so simple, to be honest with you. I mean, that's the thing I love about good software is the effort that's been put in to make it user friendly. There's been a couple of other bits of software I've used in the past that were you kind of hamstrung by you got to go here and download this and you got to
Yeah,
wait for a license and
yeah,
but the first install of it was kind of like, oh, okay,
it's ready.
here it is, it's ready. And
Yeah,
then you say it's there. I put it in my dock, and like most things with a dock, you can drag a file straight onto the icon. It opens up. It's so intuitive as well that it kind of there's your file. What I love about it is because to give a reason why OmniMarkz is so cool for what I do is historically we had a lot of artwork created in Illustrator, which was then converted to PDF, and then the original files got corrupted,
oh
lost,
yeah, yeah,
um, and even things like a combination of like Astute Graphics Vector First Aid being able to convert outline text back to live text, as long as the typeface is on your system, because it's not OCR, it's a different method. But
right,
combining the tools, we have to obviously turn a lot of text back to live text. And because we've got brand guidelines, we know what the typefaces are, so we know the conversion will work. But also, we've got the problem of, well, we don't want these files as a PDF. We want to rework this artwork. So, and we were chatting about it one day, and I'd been speaking to Mary for a while, and you just introduced OmniMarkz, and it was like, I know that I know this really cool product. So I said, but it's mine, but um, I want to show you what it does because this is what we're trying to do at the moment is get everybody set up on software at work, which, as I said, is a very slow process.
yeah,
So I'd had a couple of files at home, which were old historical files that I'd created for it was a radio station and it was a couple of leaflets for another company, and I had the same problem. At the time, they had sent me artwork and said, hey, we need this changing, we need it updating, can you? And they sent it to me, and it was all outlined. It was horrible, but it was a PDF. So I thought, right, let's see how good this OmniMarkz is. So I dragged this PDF onto it, opened it up, and then obviously the window comes up, and on the left hand side you see the document. But what I love was on the right hand side, it tells you how many images were embedded, it tells you what the fonts were, it tells you how many fonts are in the document, and it gives you all this information about that file that it's already understood.
Like a mini flight check is what it is.
Yeah. And so it kind of gives you an opportunity to sort of start planning, okay, what can I do with this document? So obviously at the top we've got InDesign, Illustrator, PowerPoint. I've not got it open at the moment. I should open it really. But obviously for me, the InDesign was the important one.
Right.
So straight away, like first time user, I didn't do any training because that's how I like to use software. I like to open it up and see how intuitive it is. So dragged it on, opened it up, looked up InDesign. There's an InDesign file. Now, obviously, it's can only be as good sometimes as the way the artwork's been created.
Right.
So,
or the year it was created. And
yeah, but what it does give you is such a good start on being able to work in this document in InDesign and being able to manipulate it and not have to rebuild it from scratch. And so like after that first one, I went in, I tidied the bits up I needed to, changed out a couple of images, obviously saved it back out and sent it to the customer. And the other cool thing about something like that is just to kind of go off on a tangent is time. Like we were saying, everything's so fast at the moment and everyone's trying to do everything so quickly. And I think there's a lot to be said about patience and doing a job properly. And had I done it the old way, I would have obviously rebuilt it from scratch, tried to pull elements out, and then you've got people who copy and paste into InDesign, which I never encourage. Everything should be embedded, and you spend all this time. And what I love is a piece of software that can just reduce that time process, but still give me a professional result. And what I used to say, and I was corrected rightly. I used to think like a designer in the bedroom and go, wow, yeah, but if you think about it, if you're charging your client for an hour because they think it takes you an hour and you do it in 10 minutes, you're kind of still making 50 minutes more pay, which is not a bad thing. But I was kind of encouraging people to look at it as, steal the time and go and work for someone else. And someone pointed out to me, you might be sat in a room of graphic designers, but you're also sat in a room that might have studio managers who are going, hang on a minute. So they made me think about actually what is important, and how I look at it now is if I've got a job that would have taken me an hour and I can now do it in 10 minutes, what I do with that 50 minutes is I get up, go and take a walk, stop, have a think about it, walk back to the job. Can I offer anything better? Can I add some extra value to this job? Now that I've seen I can save some time, maybe I'll go and do another couple of files that they've got and kind of say, oh, hey, look, I was able to do this as well. And actually use the time as a valuable asset from a learning process, adding extra value to the job, and just mental health. Just get up and walk away and just be able to have
fresh eyes.
Yeah, this morning I was absolutely losing my rag because my internet was slow, Microsoft products were being slow, and I was trying to upload files, and because I've got software that saves me time, I was able to get up and walk away for 10 or 15 minutes, go and have a cup of tea, was able to come back, calm down, and get on. And I had that time, I had that ability because the tools I'm using are able to reduce what was an hour job. But obviously, like I say, don't let on your secrets. If you've got a tool that can reduce that job down to 10 minutes, don't tell the client it's 10 minutes because next time you'll want it done in 5.
Well, and like you said, it's gonna you have to really check it because any conversion you should really check it out. And just so the listeners and the watchers know, OmniMarkz is a bundle of all three of our Markz line products, which is IDMarkz, QXPmarkz, and PDFmarkz. IDMarkz will scan InDesign files, QXPmarkz will read import files, and PDFmarkz Illustrator and PDF files. And what it does, like with the PDF, so you'll take the PDF and it'll actually export your file with all layers, live text, images will be extracted, stylization, trapping, tables, you name it. We're going to convert it now with a PDF to InDesign. A Corp to InDesign goes quite well because it's two relatively compatible engines, not everything, but relatively. PDF to InDesign, even though it's Adobe Acrobat most of the time that the file came from, it's going to have some inconsistency here or there, and you have to double check.
Yeah, and that's the thing we do now is because we're afforded that time, it gives us the opportunity to double check things, to go back, like say, walk away, work on another job, come back to it, check it, and we produce better work because we have more time to focus on the output rather than rushing to get stuff out.
Right.
And also as well, to get ahead of ourselves, what we're also able to do is now go back and actively look for archive files that we know will come round again, maybe because of a seasonal reason. And we're now going in and repairing older files. I'm going back through my own work from my own Dropbox folder and pulling out files that I just think, it'd be good to have an InDesign version of that. It'd be good to assume everybody uses what we use. And now you think,
oh, it's not so anymore. No.
Yeah, we've got Affinity. Affinity.
Oh, look at Affinity, great UK company. And we have IDMarkz, which OmniMarkz includes. You can take your InDesign file and convert it with a click right into Affinity Publisher.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people are doing that. And they're not, well, some of them are professional designers as well, but a lot of them are on the fringe,
Yeah.
different segments, and it's a lot less expensive, but it does
Absolutely.
a great
job. I'm all for, I'm a pro Adobe person, and I will fight to the death to say, to say why I believe the subscription model is better for a certain section of the industry.
Professionals.
But I'm all for accessibility. Kids should be able to access software because, like we said at the start of this chat, is they're learning faster, so they need to get their hands on it. So any software that enables somebody to be creative, whether it's free online or whether it's a paid for one-off option like Affinity, or whether it's the industry standard, which is Adobe. I've said to quite a few designers, look, go and get Affinity, learn how to make stuff, because when you print that out and put it in front of someone, they don't know what software it's created on.
No, most of
you've got to learn the basics, you've got to learn the quality, you've got to understand how design works. It doesn't really matter. I mean, there's a football team, it's not even a professional football team near where I live, called Swindon Supermarine, and I think the guy's name is Keith. And I went to see him one day, and he said, "Oh, just the man, I need to get your book off you." And I said, "Mate, you can have a copy of it. Honestly, anyone who wants to learn InDesign, it's the perfect desktop book." I said, "So you're using InDesign at the moment?" He said, "Oh, no, I've not got InDesign yet. I need to work out if I can afford it." And I said, and he handed me the match, what we call a match program, so the brochure for the football match. And I was looking through it and thinking, this isn't bad for a non-league football team. It's well laid out. The photographs are good. It's well put together, well designed. And I said, if you don't mind me asking, like, what software do you use then? Microsoft Word. He's laying out the whole program in Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
And honestly, I didn't even know you could do what he's doing in Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
But he's designing it in a piece of software that makes my skin crawl.
But he exactly, we get a lot of these PDFs from Word, from PowerPoint, and they're using OmniMarkz, and it's amazing. It's like, wow. Another one that's really in the last few years has just been amazing, and it's just going up, is Canva PDFs. And they're getting more and more complex and longer, bigger obviously InDesign is the king for having long documents. I mean, that's it. But what it is like the one interview I had with a lady in the US nonprofit. She made her book and then she realized, well, to do print on demand, Amazon, through however service she went through, it, Ingram or something, I don't know anymore, but they required InDesign files for the print on demand process. So she had a, stress. She found
Yeah.
us to convert her Canva PDF with a click. It didn't
To
need any touching
InDesign,
up in her
yeah.
case. InDesign file to the printer, and now she's making money for a charity, with print on demand of her book. So yeah,
That's great. I mean, and say anybody being creative is good. All you've got to consider is, I kind of likened it to calm. If you like tinkering with your car in the garage, going out of the weekend, just pulling the hood up, playing around, just tinkering. You probably go to the local hardware store, Lowe's, or and you buy a $50, $100 toolkit, bring it home. It's got the basics. If you're tinkering with your car, you wouldn't go and buy the whole snap-on full big red cabinet with every drawer,
right.
with
Yeah,
every tool in, because it's overkill for what you want. It's kind of you kind of got a hobby
yeah.
and you've got professional tools.
And you got
And
everything in between, semi-professional, and
yeah, and you've got to find, um like, I never like people saying it's too expensive. It's no, it's the price that's been set for what it is. It's whether it's
right,
affordable to you and justifiable. So I think if you're going to learn and you're at this end, no, you don't need the Adobe products. But at the same time, I would say learn design through Affinity or an online version, because Canva and Adobe Express at the moment are
right.
the two big things. But they're I don't think you're learning graphic design there. I think you need to learn the software, because if your ultimate aim is to get a job doing it, you're going to end up using Adobe tools.
Right.
So get what you can afford to learn and build up. And then when you go from hobby to making a little bit of money in your room doing a bit of work, you can maybe look at upgrading your software, like just get InDesign. It's
Yeah,
$20
you don't need to
a
get
month.
the entire
Yeah,
suite anymore. No.
$20 a
Yeah.
month. You get a few extra bits. It means you can use some of the third-party plugins and tools to help you, and then you can gradually build on it. And then eventually, if you go and walk in to work for a big design company, you're not going to get past the interview if you've only used GIMP and you
Inkscape.
know yeah, Inkscape, yeah, that you won't get through the door.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
have to kind of scale up how you want to learn. Then as you go, this is where you pick up the tools along the way, like scripts in InDesign. I'm a big fan of scripts in InDesign. I like
Sure.
third-party
Yeah.
plugins.
Yeah.
Anything that helps me become better. It's like I know how to do it, but this plugin does it quicker for me. So I'm not cutting a corner. Actually, without the plugin, I know how to do it. And
Yeah.
then obviously when you start to step into plugins like Astute Graphics, where they add functionality to something like Illustrator where it isn't there before, it enables you to be more creative. It adds an extra tool to your toolbox, to your creative arsenal, gives you a kind of an advantage over your, I don't like to word the competitor, because I don't think we should be competing. I think we should all be just, we'll get the work. We shouldn't compete with each other for the work. But
Right.
it does give you an advantage when you're looking to do a job that, hey, look, I can do that conversion. You've got a ton of files need converting. Don't worry, I've got a tool that can help that process. I've got this tool over here that allows me to be more creative. I can take your PDF, I can use this program to turn it into an Illustrator file, and I've got this tool here that will clean it up and make it more creative.
Yeah.
I've got a workflow that enables me to be a more efficient designer, therefore a more affordable designer. And then you're creating good work. And because you're creating good work, you're not like one of those, I hate to pick on builders, but they don't help themselves. If I want to hire a builder, I just want to know that he's going to come in and do a good job. He's
Yeah.
not going to try and cut corners and try and
Right.
stiff me for a few £100 just to make a bit of money, because you get a bad reputation.
Yeah.
And I don't like to see that in design. I like to see people learn the basics and get good ethics, and design for the right reasons, and just encourage other people, make good work, and have
Yeah,
good
yeah.
output.
Like you said, education, it's a key, and that's why we're here actually, because it's all about sharing with other people what's your experience. I like to hear about the workflow, but with OmniMarkz in particular, would you recommend OmniMarkz for other potential users?
Oh, I'm not just saying this because we're speaking. Outside of plugins for Illustrator, uh, if you are working with any PDF and another piece of creative software, whether it's PowerPoint, InDesign, Affinity, OmniMarkz should be in your dock. It's just like it's like a spoon. If you go to a cutlery drawer, it's a knife, fork, and a spoon. OmniMarkz is the spoon. You can't have it without it. And like I said, I'm not just saying it because we're talking. Originally, when I was aware of your products, but I wasn't in a situation where I could justify, but like the company I work for wouldn't pay for it, or
Right,
because I think I remember trying to get it on board when I was at Astute. But it was one of those products that's always been there that I've always known about. And then when OmniMarkz came out, it was kind of like, oh, this is great because this isn't just one thing. And now it's in my dock, and I probably use it. I wouldn't say once a day, but I probably use it 5 to 6 times minimum a week,
wow,
depending on what my workflow is. Because, and that's at home and at work, because obviously trying to get the whole team on it now.
right,
So we've got a new marketing manager. I'm putting my case forward for everyone to have software. But for me, it's just it's in my dock at home, it's in my dock at work, so that I can just quickly go, right, okay, this is a job for OmniMarkz. It's there. Without thinking about it, I'll drag a file in. It opens up. It gives me the information. Yeah, I would say it. If you're doing that kind of work, OmniMarkz should be one of the products you're using, because you will use it day to day.
right,
You will find it useful. If not like on a daily basis, you will find yourself using it to a point where you're glad you've got it there every day,
right, right.
because it's such a super time saving and stressless tool.
Yeah,
Anything that takes the anxiety out of work is great.
right.
And I love the fact that I can say, oh, a couple of times I've actually used a different conversion to see what it looks like. Oh, this is what this looks like in PowerPoint. And it does such a good job of understanding the structure of the file and giving it to you in a
Yeah,
way that allows you to continue working. And like I said, you have to check everything. You have to double check
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
A couple of times in InDesign, it might put a couple of things together in one frame,
yeah,
but you're able
yeah,
to see it. It's right
yeah.
there in front of you. You
Yeah,
can
and a couple clicks.
yeah, and it's
But the thing
fixed.
is, it's got all your layers, all your live text, all the elements are there, and it's the colors. It's just a much faster than recreating an entire, even just a brochure, but an entire booklet or what have you. It just saves so much time and
Yeah.
effort. So
And what I love as well is it knows what typeface is in the PDF,
yeah,
because obviously the information's in the that's the other thing. The PDF holds so much information that the fact that it can extract that and go, oh hey, that's using Montserrat or that's using Helvetica. Obviously, if you haven't got that typeface on your system in InDesign,
you'll need to
but at
substitute it.
least you know what
Right,
typeface to go and find or substitute it.
right.
And it's another great tool for trying to think who it was. Extensis
Yeah,
had something where you were able to go and look through like every document on your system that included a typeface,
yeah,
so that you could
yeah,
go in. And same with OmniMarkz, is because you've got these PDFs that maybe the company's changed from Helvetica New to Montserrat. You're able to go in and find all these documents, bring them into InDesign, set styles, and then you can change the style, and it can change the type in the whole document. Then you can re-export it back to a PDF for print and keep it in
yeah,
an InDesign
yeah.
copy. Yeah, it's
Wow.
just it's the
Well,
Swiss Army knife.
That's a good one, Dave. That's we used to say it's a Swiss Army knife with all the different conversion options, preview options, and file information that you get. So well said, Dave. I really appreciate the time. We're almost an hour on the Zoom here. It's amazing. It's been a pleasure.
So quick.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that. I just wow.
Yeah.
Could you show your book again, Dave? The
Yes.
InDesign.
Sorry, so it's how do I do that in InDesign with Rocky Nook? If you go to bit.ly, so bit.ly / and then in capitals just type InDesign book. It take you to a landing page and you can download. I added an extra one. There's 2 full PDF extracts, both with, I think each has got about 50 tips from the book, so you can get both of them now.
Wow.
So yeah, you just fill it. It subscribes to my newsletter, and that is kind of like a once a month thing where I just put in loads of freebies
Right.
and
All the things you've learned over the
document events, documents, documentaries to watch on YouTube, just kind of like a friendly thing. So
sharing.
Don't spam you, but you can get 2 PDFs. I think in total it's something like a 50 to 75 tips from the book that I pulled out that were useful, and then say the rest of it, it's still, even though it came out right at the start of a pandemic when all the bookshops sent every book back to the publisher. But what it is it's a 1 page, so every page in the book fulfills 1 tip, like how do I do that in InDesign, how do I create this, and 1 page gives you the explanation for that particular thing, how to do it. So it's all chapters, you can just pick it up, find the thing you need, put it back down. You don't have to read all the way through.
Wow.
And that was the whole purpose, was for it to be like I was sat next to you explaining to you how to do that thing. So it's done well. It's doing okay, given it had a bumpy 2 years of no bookshops.
Yeah, that was a tough period. Yeah.
But
I got your LinkedIn profile. Put a link to that. That's a nice profile. And I see, it's daveclayton.com. Is that up and running?
It's daveclayton.com is up and running. I'm just working on it at the moment. Adding a few.
All designers always working on their webpage.
Always working on it. It's like a decorator never has a finished decorated house.
Or a printer never has a business card, you know?
Yeah.
So
so I'm on Instagram. If you want to, I mentioned about my book collection. It's called Clayton Design Library.
Okay.
All the details are on the website, Clayton Design Library. And what I do is I take a photograph of the cover of the book, then I do a video flick through, so you can see the guide as well.
Neat. Good concept.
I think it's over 500 now on the Instagram account. That's quite good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
awesome. Well, Dave, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. Yeah, and good luck in the US with Adobe MAX, and
thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, David. See you soon.
All right, take care.
Get approved. Get content. Be creative. Markzware.com